Welcome back to another video. I'm Dr. Tarcia Hubert, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the basics of statistics. Okay, so I'm going to give you a lot of formal definitions and then I'm going to provide you some examples. Okay, so first of all, we start with data because data is a big part of statistics. I mean, it's like, what is statistics without data? They go together like Kool-Aid and sugar. They go together like ham and cheese. Some people don't like cheese, right? Like peanut butter and jelly. So data is a very important part for statistics. And so data is factual information used as a basis for reasoning, discussion, or calculation. All right, that's the Merriam-Webster definition of data. And so you have to have data in order to have statistics. So statistics is a method for collecting, organizing, analyzing, and interpreting data, as well as drawing conclusions based on the data. Alrighty. So you have data, and then statistics is a method that we use to collect, analyze, interpret data. Alrighty. And so statistics is broken up into two separate parts. We have what's called descriptive statistics, which we're going to talk a lot about throughout the remainder of this course. And you have inferential statistics. All right. So descriptive statistics is concerned with the collecting, organizing, summarizing, and presenting the data. The inferential statistics is concerned with the making generalizations about and drawing conclusions from the data. So basically, like, what does the data tell you? That's what the inferential statistics is all about. Like, what can we conclude from looking at this data? But the descriptive statistics is like just basically displaying what's been found or what's been determined, what data you collected. It's just a way of displaying it. You're not interpreting it or anything. You're just showing the data and displaying it in different ways. And inferential statistics is basically looking at it and making conclusions. So now we're going to be focusing on the descriptive statistics because we're not going to actually be collecting data. We're going to be using data that's already been collected, and we're going to be presenting it and then determining how to read that data. So whenever you collect data from what we call a population. Population is the set containing all the people or objects whose properties are being described and analyzed by the data collector. And we'll look at an example in a minute. And then you can't actually collect data from everybody in a specific population. So you might be interested in all women in the United States, right? Seeing their feelings towards something. Well, it's almost impossible to collect data from every woman in the United States. I'm not saying it is, but it is. Like, the probability of getting every woman to participate in what it is you're trying to do is really, really slim. So what you do instead of collecting data from everybody is you select a sample from that population. And the sample is just a subset or a subgroup of the population. So you just select a sample and you collect data from that sample, and you use the results from that sample to kind of make decisions or conclusions about your population. Okay, you see this a lot, especially when it comes to voting. We just left a voting season back in November of 2020, and you see them a lot talking about what the polls say and things like that. So the polls is collecting data, and then they use the results from that data to describe how Americans feel in general. Even though you may never participated in the study, they use it to interpret, the way American voters feel. All right, so here's an example. So in Texas, which is where I am, there's a bill up for discussion about bringing casinos to Texas. So right now there are currently 3 casinos in Texas that are on Indian reservation land, right? But there's a bill that's up about bringing casinos into the large cities, Austin, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. And so in this particular example, it's not specifically in Texas, it's just an example. A group of hotel owners in a large city decide to conduct a survey among citizens to discover their opinions about casino gambling, okay? So this is before they actually open up a casino in the city. They want to see how the people of the city feel about it, okay? So the population in this particular study will be the citizens of that city. So that will be your population. You want to see the opinions of the citizens of the city. Now, will you get data from everybody in the city? No. So you would select a sample to survey. So you would select a smaller group of people to survey to figure out how people feel. So like we're in Houston, there's about if you do Houston and surrounding areas, about 4 to 6 million people. There's no way you could survey everyone. So you will take a subset of that. And I don't know what the exact population of Houston is, but either way it goes, it's in the millions. You wouldn't be able to survey everybody. So you take a subset of the population and you survey them to get their feelings on the casinos. So here's a question. One of the hotel owners decide that they want to survey people who go to the 6 largest nightclubs. Do you think that would be a good idea? That's how they want to select the sample. They want to catch people that go to the 6 largest nightclubs and give them the survey. Do you think that is a good idea or a good representation of people in the city? What do you think? So I want to give you a little time to think about it. So hopefully you said no, that's not a good idea. For one, everybody don't go to clubs, all right? So that wouldn't be a good idea because you won't catch like the broad feelings of people in the city. For two, their results might be biased because they like to go out, and most of the time people who go to casinos like to go out, so it might be more biased towards the casinos. Okay, so that would not be a good idea. And so the next thing we're going to discuss is, you know, how do you pick your sample? Okay, and so there's what's called random sampling. This is one of the well-known methods for picking a sample. But there are other different ways you can pick a sample. I'm not going to talk about all of them. I'm only going to talk about the random sampling. So a random sample is a sample obtained in such a way that every element in the population has an equal chance of being selected for the sample. Okay. So the hotel owners in this city, they want to survey some people from the city. So I have 3 options here, and I want you to think about it and let me know, or just think about it and decide which one of these would be the most appropriate way to select a random sample. So here's option 1. If you randomly survey people who live in the oceanfront condominiums in the city, do you think that is a good option or a good way to determine who participates in the survey? So that's you randomly survey people who live in the oceanfront condominiums in the city. That's option 1. Option 2, you survey the first 200 people whose names appear in the city's telephone directory. Survey the first 200 people whose names appear in the city's telephone directory. Do you think that is a good option? Or option 3, randomly select neighborhoods in the city and then randomly survey people within those selected neighborhoods. All right, so out of those 3 options, which option do you think is the best? So hopefully you said option 3. Option 3 is the best option for getting a random sample. If you do option 1, you're only surveying people who own oceanfront condominiums. Usually those are wealthy people. So now you have a biased sample based from only the wealthy. Everybody in the city isn't wealthy, so you don't have broad opinions there. Also, usually when you're in a city where there's an ocean, they usually put casinos on that ocean. So they might be heavily against the casino because that would bring more attention their way, more traffic their way, more noise their way, more population that way. So they might be against it, which might also skew your data. If you select the first 200 people in the telephone directory, then if you're not in the first 200 people, you have zero chance of getting selected. So in that case, everybody in the population doesn't have an equally likely chance of being selected. So that would not be considered a random sample. And then the third one, randomly selecting neighborhoods. So that's a random process right there. And then randomly selecting people within those selected neighborhoods is another random process. And so since those are random processes, then you have a better chance of getting a random sample using that third option. Okay. So hopefully this makes sense. You have a population, which is a group of people that you want to study. You can't study them all, so you select what's called samples. And then you can find the sample, which is a subgroup of the population, using different methods. But the only one we're talking about in this video is a random sample, okay? So if you have any questions about any of this is just the basics of statistics. If you have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to put them in the comments below or send me a personal message. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video where we're going to talk about frequency distributions.